Top of the morning, everybody. Bringing in for this show that we call The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I'm Emerson Latzia, solo host, rolling with you for the next 55 minutes. So not a lot of time to get to a lot of stuff, including who our analysts believe the Panthers now will take it number one overall in the NFL draft, which guys the roster, which teams to bet around the NHL tonight. Just a 3-game slate there. Plus Scotty Scheffler back to number one in the world. Why what his grandma did at 88 years young is even more impressive than winning the Players. I promise you that. First things first, check it out. Meet the number one seeds, baby, because we officially have a bracket. So let's grab some instant reaction to the field of 68 from DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya. My dude, not all draws in the NCAA tournament are created equal here. So who do you think got the best of them all?
Well, the most obvious one would be the number one overall seed, Alabama. I think this is a tremendous draw for the Crimson Tide. If you look at some of the top seeds, the other top seeds in this region, you have Virginia, which has historically struggled outside of that one championship win that they've had. You know, they also were the only number one seed to ever lose to a 16. Virginia has had some up and down tournaments. Arizona was very questionable last year, at least, going in as a 1 seed and a potential title pick for a lot of people. Ended up losing in the round of 32, I believe, or maybe even in the Sweet 16. Baylor struggled down the stretch, lost that tournament game against Iowa State. I think the only real challenge here for Alabama would be a potential round of 32 matchup against West Virginia. If that were to happen, we know that press is tough to prep for on a quick turnaround. But outside of that, and it pains me to say that because I really don't like the issues surrounding this Alabama team, and I don't think that Nate Oates personally has dealt with that very well, the controversy surrounding Brandon Miller. But I just don't see a way that they don't get out of this region outside of an injury or, you know, a really poor shooting night. I don't see how anybody really beats Alabama here in this South region.
All right, which team is a little disappointed in its draw? Because you have a year after a very soft draw to eventually win it all. Kansas, it appears, and correct me if I'm wrong, has been rewarded with one of the toughest fields this season.
Kansas definitely has a tough draw, and as a Missouri fan, I'm not going to complain about that. So it's going to be a tough title defense for the Jayhawks, but I actually think Purdue is the team that got hosed, and they were the 4th number 1 seed, and there was questions about whether Purdue would be that number 1 seed. Would it be Texas? Would somebody else sneak in? But you got Duke, Tennessee, Oral Roberts, which had a great run in the tournament a few years ago, Kansas State, Kentucky, and Marquette. That is a field loaded with a few blue bloods. You got a few high-powered offensive teams. Tennessee has struggled lately, but they can spring a surprise. And Purdue, I mean, we nearly saw them give away a game where they had, a 10-point lead with 5 minutes to go in the Big Ten title game against Penn State. So Purdue has not looked that great closing out games either. And now you got some of these teams that have historically done well in the tournament or have tremendous efficiency numbers. It's a bad draw for the Boilermakers, in my opinion.
All right, you've kind of already mentioned Alabama, how much you like the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. So are you confident enough to back them coming out of the South here?
As tempting as it is to take the number 7 seed in this South Regional, that would be my Missouri Tigers. I don't believe they can sustain the 3-point shooting for a whole tournament. Maybe they can do it for a weekend, but I don't think that 3-point shooting, they can stay hot for the whole tournament. So I unfortunately am going to have to pick Alabama here. It's not fun picking the number 1 overall seed, but I just don't see, as I mentioned, I just don't see a team that can take these guys out in this region.
Yeah, Bama trying to make its first Final Four in program history. What about in the East here, Chinmay? I mean, I'm looking at this region. It does not lack for star power here. Purdue, joined by Marquette, Kansas State, Tennessee, followed by number 5 seed Duke and number 6 Kentucky here, dude.
If Purdue had a better perimeter option outside of basically, four random guys at times, it seems, I would take the Boilermakers, but I think I'm going to have to go with Marquette here. I think Shaka Smart has done a tremendous job with this team. They just fly offensively, and I think Purdue has given away games way too many times down the stretch to feel confident in taking the Boilermakers, even though Zach Edey is a matchup nightmare for everyone. I'm going to take the Golden Eagles to come out of the East region.
All right, so let's move on then to the next one here. We have got Midwest, and this one is another doozy, dude. How can you not like a regional bracket that, like, if the seedings here hold form, we'll have Texas meeting Texas A&M in the second round, and then wind its way to Houston and Texas playing for a spot in the Final Four, being held in Houston.
Yeah, this is an interesting one as well. You know, Houston has gone to a Final Four. Auburn went to a Final Four a few years back. But outside of that, there's really some teams that have historically underwhelmed in tournaments. You talk about Texas. The last time Texas reached the Sweet 16, I think it was almost a decade ago. I think 2014 was the last time. So it's been a while for some of these teams. Iowa had a big letdown last year as that 8 seed that could potentially shock Houston. I would like some clarity on the Marcus Sasser situation before really looking at this bracket. But I think Houston is the pick for me right now. There was even talk of the Cougars being in contention for the number 1 overall seed. And maybe if Marcus Sasser was 100% healthy, they would have been. I like Houston getting out of here, but I think a sneaky pick, you know, if Sasser is hurt or ruled out for a while, Texas A&M has been quietly playing excellent basketball this whole season. I think they've been underseeded this whole time. They've been underranked this whole time. And I just don't trust Texas in this tournament. So I think A&M has a great shot to make a deep run here, especially given the draw that they've had and a chance with a matchup against Texas where that's a big rivalry game for those schools. And I think A&M has performed well. I would back them if I wasn't picking Houston.
Okay, Chinmay, how wild could this West region get? And can teams like a Howard, a UNC, Asheville, or Grand Canyon pull off monumental upsets here?
Yeah, I mean, Grand Canyon is the one that everyone looks at with Bryce Drew and the offensive firepower that they have. That school has been quietly rising in out West and has done a tremendous job with that program. I think Kansas is going to have a tough matchup against Arkansas in that round of 32. Arkansas has a couple of top NBA prospects in Anthony Black and Nick Smith, and I think they could really give the Jayhawks some trouble. UCLA would be an intriguing pick, but I think they just have one too many injuries. I do like the Bruins to make it to the Sweet 16, but I don't think they can go all the way here. I actually like Gonzaga, the number 3 seed coming out of this region. I think Drew Timme might be the best overall player in this region. So I'm going to back the Bulldogs to get the job done here and get to the Final Four. I think Mark Few really likes this draw. He's kind of coming under the radar, and some people are overlooking Gonzaga, but we can't forget about Drew Timme. That man appears to be on a mission here, and I'll take him as the best player in this region to get the job done and take Gonzaga to a Final Four.
Okay, so before this entire thing, before March Madness tips off, you got the first 4 games coming the next 2 days here. Your bet right now to win this entire thing is which team and why?
Yeah, as I mentioned off the top, I think unfortunately, you know, and I hope this doesn't happen, but it's tough to bet against Alabama. It's tough to pick against the Tide. I just don't see a team in this field, if everyone is healthy, I don't see a team that can take down Alabama in a game. They have so many paths to win. They may have the best overall player in Brandon Miller. He was retroactively added to the Wooden Award list, I believe, a few days ago. So, you know, people are coming around on Brandon Miller. They have plenty of other talent as well. They're a deep team. They're well coached. They have camaraderie and they have some adversity that they've gone through, you know, off the court that this team has come together. So I think Alabama would be my pick. If I had to pick somebody, Houston, I think, has the best chance of beating Alabama. If Marcus Sasser is healthy, I would probably bet Alabama and Houston. Those would probably be the 2 choices for me. There are some great options in the middle of this pack, though. I think Kansas, as the defending champion, is a solid play. You have UCLA. If you don't buy the injury news as much, then the Bruins are a nice option as well. Marquette is sitting there. They have a tremendous offensive game plan, and Shaka Smart has been a good coach in tournaments before. So I think, you know, there's plenty of options in the middle of this tournament. This is going to be a crazy one. Houston does not have great odds, even as the favorite. So I think this could be a very wacky tournament. I would go with Alabama right now, but it's a tough one. And you could talk me into a lot of teams winning this.
Could the basketball team actually make a Final Four in a year when the football team did not? It could actually happen in Alabama. Speaking of wackiness, our sweat bracket madness, we are down already to the Elite 8 here, Chinmay. Some very interesting results in the Sweet 16. We're looking at the, at least in the T regional, we have quite the matchup here. So the better fantasy athlete, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant? Which direction are you going in? Who gets your vote?
This is a deep cut because I believe Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. But my favorite basketball player of all time is Kobe Bryant. So this is a really tough one for me. I would have to go with Jordan just because of the numbers and the accolades. But I mean, I personally can't vote against Kobe Bryant. This is where the things really get tough to predict. I have to go with Jordan just based on the numbers, but I personally would vote for Kobe Bryant if I had to make a vote.
Okay, because it sounds like you're voting for both of them, which you only have one vote, Chinmay. I just want you to know that. Michael Jordan, 65.8% of the votes currently, and we're almost up to 300 votes. Kobe Bryant, 34.2%. While we're on the topic of the NBA, my guy, tonight in fantasy, as we begin our NBA shoot-around segment, best guard in DFS, who would you roster tonight?
I think Devin Booker is the natural option. I know that price point is very high. 10.1K is a big number, but Booker has 5 straight games of at least 50-plus fantasy points, 2 games with 60-plus fantasy points, and Kevin Durant is still out. The Suns don't really have another great perimeter option offensively. Chris Paul has settled into more of that distributor role that he's very good at, and DeAndre Ayton is getting some touches as well, but Booker has been playing absolutely lights out, and I think that KD trade has really energized him to take that next step forward. I like Devin Booker to have another really solid night in a big game for the Suns against the Warriors tonight. That's a game that has a huge playoff implications. So I like the Suns guard to get the job done here. I know it's a big number, but the production has been there.
For sure. It's a 6-game slate, and it's actually loaded with out and questionable tags already. So let's go to forward or center. Who are you going to play at this spot?
Yeah, you mentioned the injury. And I think this is one where you can save some money. I would back Bobby Portis, 7,100. Obviously, the Giannis injury situation is what you really need to look at, because if Giannis does play, then Portis is going to have a significantly reduced role, and it's hard to kind of pay up for that number for a guy who isn't going to play that much. But if Giannis is out, Portis has had 30-plus fantasy points in 3 straight games. One of those games, he nearly went for 50 with 48.8. He's probably going to get the start if Giannis is out, and he plays well with Brook Lopez down low. Portis gives you a little bit of everything. He can shoot the 3 as well, and he plays with a lot of energy, gives that Bucks team a lift whenever he's in the game. I like Bobby Portis as the forward center play, and if Giannis is out, then this price tag is a bargain.
Yeah, and with so many questionable and out tags already, point us in the direction here of an early value play you like.
I like Isaiah Jackson for the Pacers. Miles Turner has been ruled out already. And Jackson went for 43.8 fantasy points in his last game against the Pistons. Pacers play the Pistons again. Detroit is tanking. Indiana is trying to tank, but has still got enough talent, I think, to beat Detroit here. And Jackson just had a big game. So give me Isaiah Jackson coming in at 4.6K. So under 5K, that gets you good value. And I think he's set for a big game tonight.
All right, let's shift gears over to the DraftKings Sportsbook here, Chinmay. Which game total do you like tonight? Looks like the biggest ones on the board, 244.5. That's between the Timberwolves and the Hawks. You also got Bucks and Kings.
Yeah, you got some big numbers, and I tend to stay away for anything that's in the 240 and above range, just because you go through 1 3 or 4 minute stretch where teams can't score, and you're automatically out of the running for that. I like Suns and Warriors to go over 236. I know the Warriors have been much better at home defensively, but I think Phoenix has been really good offensively of late, even with Durant out, and the Warriors have been good offensively at home as well. So I think this is going to be a close matchup. I think it'll be high scoring. I like the over 236 for Phoenix and Golden State tonight.
Yeah, Curry fresh off a 36-point game against Milwaukee. Looks like he's back feeling healthy. Favorite money line or spread tonight? Where are you going?
So I do like the Warriors still to come away with a victory against the Suns on the money line, and I'm going to parlay that with the Miami Heat.
Ooh.
So you get that's coming in at plus 105 right now on the DK Sportsbook, that parlay. I think Miami gets the job done against a Utah team that is trying to tank. And I think the Warriors keep that home cooking going and take down the Suns tonight in what should be one of the better games late in this regular season.
All right, Chinmay, good stuff, and congrats again on taking the lead in the race for the sweaty boot against AJ. I'm very proud of you, so way to hit on those EPL picks, my dude. Biggest news of the weekend, though, the new league year as will officially begin around the NFL on Wednesday, and the Panthers on Friday, now on the clock after trading with the Bears, pulling in the #1 overall pick. Will they take Anthony Richardson? That would be bold. The darling of the combine, Golick and Smetty, they doubt it.
This one was Anthony Richardson from Florida, who we all knew was going to test out of his mind. And he did.
He's an incredible athlete.
Is a freak. 6'4", 6'5"? I think he was 244.
He had like a 40-inch vertical. Yeah,
40 and a half. He was bummed he wanted 41. I mean, the dude is a freak. That was never in question.
Right.
But to watch him work out, and listen, he was going to be a first rounder. But anybody to watch him work out and say, oh, because of the workout, we are now moving him up, I still don't understand it. I don't understand it.
I know exactly what you mean, because I think it's frustrating, especially for college football fans, to hear like draft discourse, because there's two guys in the draft this year, Will Levis from Kentucky and Anthony Richardson, that have been graded really high in the draft because they have the size, the speed, the body type,
good.
like all these things that you want your quarterback to have.
Yeah,
but
I want to look like them. They're unreal.
Right.
Yeah.
If you watched any of their games, which, it's hard to grade, I guess, if you're a team that doesn't have great NFL quality weapons, which not every college football team does. But, Anthony Richardson was really hit or miss this season, struggled a lot. Didn't have really consistent week-to-week progress for Florida. Will Levis, same thing. So it's really weird to watch as college football fans, because then you have someone like Bryce Young, who I think the main concern with him is his size. Yeah. He's maybe 5'10", 5'11". He's 204 pounds.
He was 5'10" and an eighth, and he was 204
There you go, 5'10"
pounds.
and an eighth. I rounded up for him.
Yeah.
204 pounds, and can you take a hit and all this stuff? But if you watched Bryce Young play at Alabama, he was incredible.
So the top of the 2023 NFL draft was shaken up drastically on Friday by a trade, a blockbuster trade here between the Bears and the Panthers. We're kicking off our NFL Hangover segment right now with Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich hitting on that big news. All right, so we have the Panthers trading with the Bears, landing the top pick here, Jeff. Frank Reich moves up to grab his quarterback of the future. Who's the biggest winner here, dude?
Look, I actually think this is a situation where both teams are winners. It's just, how do you want to build in the NFL? The Panthers, they could have gone out. They could have tried to trade for Lamar Jackson, give a star quarterback a massive contract. They didn't do that. They went the other route. They tried to invest a bunch of draft capital in a young rookie quarterback who's going to be on a cheap contract. That's the significance here. It's not just that they're trading up to get C.J. Stroud, who may be the next big thing. He may not be, but the purpose of this is now you can build around a cheap contract at quarterback with a guy who's got a lot of skill. That's the path the Panthers chose. I think it's perfectly fine. We've seen other teams do this, select a quarterback high and build around him. Joe Burrow comes to mind. Certainly the Chargers come to mind. Yes, the Panthers gave up a lot of capital. And then on the Bears side, they already had their cheap quarterback. So this made even more sense for the Bears. The Bears are definitely the biggest winners because they already had that quarterback in place. But I think for both franchises, this trade made a lot of sense. It all comes down to the Bears. Now, what do they do with these picks? What do they do with the cap space? If they can knock it out of the park this year, the 70-1 on the DraftKings Sportsbook, it sounds so silly. Oh, it's the Bears. That is going to look like an absolute bargain if the Bears really keep building and they spend this money wisely.
Yeah, Pierce, was this package larger than what you would expected they would receive in exchange for the pick?
Yeah, it was pretty big. And on paper, it does look like the Bears probably came out ahead. But, a first-round pick, a first-round quarterback, a lot could be changing in the future. And we just look at last year's draft. There wasn't very many quarterbacks. People had kind of a wait-and-see approach. Maybe a quarterback will fall to you. And we saw exactly what happens when you get a quarterback who's not a sure thing. And they were all terrible. And it looks like this year, Stroud is as close to a sure thing as you can get. And if you want to turn your franchise around, we have seen that that's the easiest, quickest way to do it. Get your number one quarterback. As Jeff has mentioned, he's cheap. So I like the aggressive move by the Panthers. At 9, they weren't going to be able to get a star quarterback, and it would have just delayed their development. And then on the other side, as Jeff mentioned, as long as the Bears make the right moves with these draft picks, whether that's to get their defense back into check or maybe build up that offensive line, they're sitting pretty at the moment. You got a good receiver. They already had some pretty decent receivers. They've got a quarterback that just needs some blocking, and the Bears could easily be a playoff team.
All right, well, as teams are making moves left and right, we have Ian Rappaport reporting right now that the Patriots are trading tight end Jonnu Smith to the Falcons. He's a former big-ticket free agent, heads elsewhere. That creates cap space here for New England. What the hell's going on here, Jeff? Don't they have Kyle Pitts?
I mean, if you're into Kyle Pitts in fantasy at this point, I mean,
Right?
I don't even, what do you even make from this? This is just, yeah. I mean, people are still going to go out and draft Kyle Pitts, but look, I don't really think that the Jonnu Smith news is that big a deal for Kyle Pitts. Is it ideal? Do you want another tight end on the roster who's actually like pretty good? No, but Jonnu Smith, he's more of a blocking tight end. Certainly that's what his role was in the Patriots. They brought him in to be this big red zone guy who never really developed, and maybe that's part of the issue, but he's going to be on there. He's an inline tight end who's going to be in there more for blocking. The Falcons love to run the ball, and I think that's what this move is about. They don't want to use Kyle Pitts in line or as a blocking tight end. They want him split out wide. So in a way, maybe this is positive news for Kyle Pitts. It's still, yeah, you look at it and you're just like, how many more hits can this guy take? Kyle Pitts, this situation is going to have to be watched. If Jonnu Smith is suddenly out there as a red zone target and taking targets away from Kyle Pitts, it's not good news. But I think he's more of a blocking inline tight end, more of a depth move for the Falcons. But certainly now the Patriots have some space to make moves.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the Patriots are going to do at wide receiver. This is one of the weakest wide receiver classes. They're apparently just letting Myers walk, Jacoby Myers. I just don't know where they're going to spend all this extra money at wide receiver. So interesting move by the Patriots, but I don't know what they're freeing up money for necessarily.
Yeah, they're reportedly getting a 7th-round pick also in return. Pierce, it is an old friend, Arthur Smith and Jonnu Smith, going back to their Titans days here.
Yeah, that's the key here. And Jeff's right. This is mainly a rushing offense, making rushing moves. Arthur Smith, probably the most conservative, rush-heavy offense in the league. And rightfully so. He doesn't really have a quarterback. The line wasn't that great. The receiving core, aside from Pitts, isn't very good. I think Pitts is still a very talented tight end. He's going to be very versatile, but he's just in the wrong situation. He doesn't have a quarterback. He's got a coach that loves to run the ball, and now the coach is being reunited with his old tight end, who is, as Jeff mentioned, mainly a blocking first tight end, but still has some potential for short routes and in the red zone. Boy, it really makes you worry with Kyle Pitts in fantasy that we might have to wait another year. Is he going to have to change teams before something ever happens? But not looking good for him. And as for the Patriots, I don't even know what to do with this team. They really need to address the receiver. I guess their rookie draft pick last year kind of came along at the end of last season. I don't know. Maybe Josh Gordon's available.
I mean,
the cornerback who was making plays for them. Maybe I can't even remember his name now.
Which one for the Patriots?
New England, the defensive player who was like their best receiver.
Oh, Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones. This is the one who had that like 80-yard punt return or something like that.
He's like wide receiver 1 right now for the Patriots.
Yeah, it was like a walk-off punt return, I think, earlier in the season. But go back to Jonnu Smith here, guys. It was a 4-year, $50 million deal that he signed a couple seasons ago. Nearly $31.5 million like guaranteed. So give me someone who you think is going to get absolutely overpaid in free agency this year, Jeff. I mean, you mentioned how thin the wide receiver class is. So is that going to force teams to have to overpay for a few dudes who are out there?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's going to get, I shouldn't say I don't think it's going to get too crazy. It probably will. I think Jacoby Myers, who I already brought up, is in a very good spot. I think you look at this class, and Jacoby Myers doesn't jump off the page athletically, but his contested catch rate is off the charts. It's up there with the elite wide receivers. He's very good at getting open around the middle. Like, he is the guy that teams are going to sit back, look at, and be like, okay, this guy can actually help us. Because the other wide receivers just all feel like like just dart throws. Okay, maybe this guy can do something. Do you really want to hand Juju Smith-Schuster a bag of money after, he basically got outplayed by like Kadarius Toney on one leg last year? Not really. I think Jacoby Myers is a player who's in a position to get paid, to really, really get paid. So I think someone's going to overpay for him. And it won't necessarily be a bad move. I just think he's going to get paid. I think the tight ends also are in a really good spot here. Someone's going to give Dalton Schultz way too much money, in my opinion. I think Dalton Schultz is a nice player, but I also think he was just very, very benefited from the situation he was in. Run first offense in Dallas that really opened up down the middle. Dak liked to use the tight end. So I think Dalton Schultz, another name you're going to see get massively overpaid. But yeah, the wide receiver class, you're going to see some funky contracts being given out to some players who, you're just not going to think or deserve that kind of stratosphere money.
Yeah, Schultz got the tag last year. Tony Pollard this year receiving the tag in Dallas. Who gets overpaid? Which player gets overpaid this offseason here as the new year kicks off on Wednesday, Pierce?
Well, who's going to look like they're going to get overpaid? It'll be a wide receiver or defensive end, but in the end, they're not going to receive all that money. As much as we like Christian Kirk and how cool that contract and big that contract looks, I don't know if he's going to be there for the entirety of that contract. We usually don't see these things run completely to their completion, but we will see the duration with an offensive lineman, and Orlando Brown is where I would go. You look at the Bears. The Bears have the most money available, and what's the Bears' biggest need? They need an offensive lineman. Orlando Brown is a seasoned veteran, basically helped the Ravens become near Super Bowl contenders. Did win a Super Bowl with Kansas City. He wants his money. He's a winner. The Bears have that money. I don't think it's going to be a big splash. It's going to draw much attention, but I guarantee he's going to get every dime of that contract.
All right, so speaking of big splash, what team needs to make one as legal tampering opens up at noon today, Pierce?
Bears.
The Bears? I
The
mean,
Bears.
they kind of already did that.
Yeah, they did with that big draft, but if you look, they have more salary cap than anyone. They have the biggest available, and no one is even close to the amount of money that they have available. So, yeah, last week was their week. But guess what? This week can be their week again, and all they really need to do, sure, they can go get some defensive players here and there, but they really need to beef up that offensive line, and there's plenty of options. There's Orlando Brown. There's Jason Kelsey. You can take the former guard from Baltimore that played along with Orlando Brown. There's several guys that they can do. If they get 1, 2, or 3 of those guys, I think I don't think it's going to get all the attention. The attention is going to go to the wide receivers and the defensive players. That's what people really care about. But offensive line is what needs to happen. And I think the Bears can really make a strong push and statement towards the playoffs this week.
Jeff, which team needs to make a big splash, a big statement here?
Yeah, it really is crazy. I mean, I'm not just going to talk about the Bears again, but I just want to reiterate how much draft capital and cap space the Bears have. It's kind of unprecedented. This roster is going to look completely different. I mean, we haven't even talked about cornerback. They go out and sign Jamal Dean or Bradbury or something, and they can address some of these positions in the draft too. But let's pick a couple other teams here, because I think that a team in their division, the Detroit Lions, is actually also in a very good spot for free agency. They're in a similar spot. They've got a good offensive line, though. What they need is cornerbacks. They go out and get a Jamal Dean. They have some cap space. They have over $20 million in cap space. And I think that the Detroit Lions need to do this right off the top. Yes, they have some top draft picks as well. They have 2 first-round draft picks, but use those to maybe grab an athletic tight end or just improve the offense a little bit more, shore that up, and go out and get some of these guys, because you've got Bradbury on the mark. You've got Jamal Dean. If the Lions can improve the secondary a little bit, maybe get a little bit pressure as well. I mean, maybe sign like a veteran like Fletcher Cox just to shore up as well. But I mean, this Lions team had a top 5 offense. It was right up there with the elite teams. If they can improve the defense this season in the offseason, I mean, this division is wide open. I think the Lions need to make a splash. I think they need to go after one of these cornerbacks as well. This is a team that their time is now. They need to spend the money. So I want to see what the Lions do. Very interesting team. And obviously the Bears are just going to be all over the news.
Yeah.
That team is just going to look so different by the time this is all said and done.
So with the Lions or the Bears, I mean, are they the team that is one move away from really improving like the Super Bowl odds? Something similar like what we saw over the weekend here, Jeff, with what the Dolphins just did trading for Jalen Ramsey. Yeah. They went from plus 3,000 to plus 2,500 on the DK Sportsbook.
Look, when you're looking at the odds right now, I just can't, you might as well, the Bears odds can only go get shorter from here. Like, You don't have to think that the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl to go out and bet them. You just want to get some value, because if it happens, you can hedge it out later in the season. Like it makes complete sense to get some money down on the Bears at plus 7,000. It really does. I can't see these odds not getting a lot shorter after the draft and after the free agency moves. Even if they don't knock it out of the park, it's probably going to get shorter. So I also think that the Lions are another team where you could just see their odds at plus 2,800. If they address the weaknesses, if they get maybe they make a big move in the draft to move up and get a player, another top wide receiver, something. I think that the Lions at plus 2,800, they could certainly at least move down a little bit to where they're, around the plus 2,000 range. So those are two teams I'm looking at potentially making big moves. All these other teams kind of stuck in this plus 4,000 range. They kind of just feel like they're a little bit hampered. Either they don't have enough cap space, or they don't have the draft capital, or they're just not good enough that they're going to be able to address all their needs. But the Lions and the Bears, certainly the Bears have so much room to maneuver, and the Lions already have a solid foundation. I think those are two teams you'll see odds potentially get shorter after the draft and after free agency.
Pierce, which team is about to improve its Super Bowl odds so you would actually bet them right now?
I love the Bears story, and the people in Chicago should enjoy every minute of this. And they're going to improve, but from being the worst team to a playoff team is a bit of a stretch. And
well, the Jags did it. The Jags did it last year, right?
Yeah, I'm saying it's a stretch. And I think it's definitely possible in that division, but to go to the Super Bowl, you need to have a little closer of a starting point. And there's a team that is already pretty close, and they've got a lot of money available in cap space, and that's the Bengals. They're going to lose some guys defensively, but the players that they're going to lose defensively are not superstars. They're all part of a system that can be easily replaced. And there's several tight ends out there. Jeff mentioned that we're probably going to see get overpaid, but will slide really well into this offense, be it Schultz, maybe Ingram, maybe Gesicki. All have played in high-powered offenses, could really run well with Cincinnati. They've got the money to beat that offensive lineup a little bit more. Players want to go play for Cincinnati. They've got the money. I think they're going to get really close to being a Super Bowl favorite if they pull the right moves in free agency.
Yeah, and just going back to the Bears really quick, too. I mean, they're about to be in a division likely without Aaron Rodgers, too. So that could only help them out a little bit. Gentlemen, appreciate it. Jeff, we'll talk some hockey and golf with you coming up here in just a moment. But it's underdog season, as we all know, March Madness about to tip off. Who's some of the NBA's most underrated athletes here? The basketball Illuminati weigh in.
Marcus, who's the most impressive athlete that no one talks about in the NBA? Someone you assessed that your metrics were just popping, and maybe people don't think of this as the image of athleticism, but your assessment just was wow.
I mean, 2 years ago, I said that's Luka Doncic, right? 2 years ago, I'd say he was the guy. Nobody, that our athleticism metrics have him off the charts, and nobody thinks he's an athlete. I don't know. I think people think that he couldn't be as effective as he is if he wasn't an athlete now. So I don't know.
It's the breaks, right? It's the breaks. It's the deceleration that he can just put people on ice skates just by stopping in his tracks.
Yeah, you know this because we've put this out in the world before. But traditionally we looked at how fast athletes run and how high they jump, and there's so many second order performance metrics that are so much more interesting, so much more predictive of success than how high you jump. And Luka jumps lower than your average NBA guard. He doesn't jump very high. He doesn't run that fast, but he stops better than almost any athlete we've ever assessed. He was right next to James Harden at his peak, was the best breaker we've ever assessed in the NBA. We have this breaking algorithm that takes into account all these physical systems that he needs to stop fast and in control. And Harden had the highest metric, and Luka as an 18-year-old had the second highest metric as a breaker. He was the second best breaker we assessed. So we thought he was an incredible athlete. He just looks kind of doughy and slow while he's being an amazing athlete.
Have you had Jokic in there?
We have, yeah. We have.
Is there a physical attribute that he has that people sleep on?
Yes, Jokic is a great example. That would have been a better example. Thank you. Jokic.
I'll fix that in post, Marcus. Don't worry.
Listen, Jokic has the lowest vertical jump of any NBA player we've ever assessed. He's number one.
That's
Number
incredible.
one out of I don't know how many 980 or something.
Damn.
You know,
Jared Dudley must not have come through.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Get him in.
I don't think so. Yeah, so he has the lowest vertical jump, but his movement quality is really, really high.
Required.
All right, we teased at the top of the show. We will deliver on said tease right now. 3-game NHL slate. We got Paul Bruno here of RotoWire. Jeff Ulrich has returned. Let's dive into the best DFS and Sportsbook plays for this 3-game slate. So, top value or just top play overall for Sabres and Leafs? Which direction you want to go in, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Leafs are they're looking good right now. I mean, the Buffalo Sabres not in a good spot, sort of just drifting out of the playoff race. They allow a ton of shots on net. Just pay up for Mitch Marner in this situation, people. It's not overly difficult. He's only 7K. He's on an absolute roll right now. Obviously playing with Austin Matthews, going up against one of the worst penalty kill units in the league. Toronto's going to be on a high here after just dismantling the Oilers, although catching the Oilers on a road trip, a bad defensive team. Not that much to write home about, but Marner is in a very good spot here. 7K for DFS, way too cheap.
All right, favorite play in DFS for Sabres and Leafs, Paul?
I'm right in lockstep with Jeff. We both watched the same game on Saturday night, didn't we? And, the Leafs offense owned the second half of that game. The power play looked spectacular. And as he mentioned, they're facing the 31st power play, penalty killing unit in the entire league tonight. So Marner's going to build on the 17 points he's accumulated over the last 8 games. If you're looking for a cheap value in the same game, though, why not take on Michael Bunting for top 6 exposure, costing only $3,900? That seems like a good value play in this game to me.
All right, Paul, Colorado and Montreal. Who sits atop your DFS rankings here in this game?
Again, I'm going to go high-low for you, Emerson, and say that Mikko Rantanen makes a lot of sense. The $7,500 is the price tag for the trigger man who plays alongside Nate McKinnon, who right now is on a big-time heater, one of the hottest players in the entire league. So that's a mismatch, too, against Montreal, a team that knows that they're going nowhere and they're playing like it right now. So I think that makes the most sense on the high end. On the lower end, Devin Taves is quiet now. 5 scoreless games for the defenseman who normally adds to the Colorado offense. This is a great chance for him to get off the schneid, and he only costs $4,700 while playing alongside Cale Makar.
Jeff, who's your favorite DFS play in this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to want some exposure to the Colorado studs. I mean, I like the Mikko Rantanen call for sure. That's certainly a way you can do it. You also want to look at the Colorado defenseman, but for some value, I mean, I think Arturi Lehkonen again. You know, like pairing him with either a stud on the defense or with one of the other power play forwards. Leikkonen's only 5,100. Going up against his old team in Montreal, never a bad thing with hockey players and narrative, especially when they're coming in to their old city. Lehkonen just plays a ton, plays in a ton of different situations. He gets shots on net, which gives you a good floor for DFS. And he's got 18 goals in 61 games. It is really just a solid price. He's almost always around this good value territory. Lehkonen for me makes perfect sense when going up against the Canadiens here, a team who, as we already mentioned, is just playing out the string and is a team that Colorado could easily put up 5 or 6 goals against tonight.
Jeff Ulrich, Stars, Kraken, your top fantasy player here?
Yeah, I mean, the Stars offense, you absolutely have to load up tonight. I mean, this is just, it's not even a situation where they're just playing well or that it's such a good matchup, but they're just priced in the perfect spot for DFS here. I mean, Miro Heiskanen at 5,800 on defense is exactly where I would want to start. He's got points in 4 straight. He's scored over 20 DK fantasy points in 3 of his last 7 games. He plays a ton of minutes. He plays in all situations, penalty kill, power play, and you can pair him so easily and get that nice correlation with a Jason Robertson or a Rupe Hintz. I think Hintz is a great value at 6,300, at center. He's got goals in 3 straight. He's shooting the puck more of late. Again, he plays in all situations. You get a Hintz, Heiskanen stack there. You get exposure to the Stars power play. You get a cheap stack. You can still fit in studs from the other games.
All right, Paul, where are you going?
I'm in lockstep again with Jeff for those 2 players he named. Heiskanen on the fence, 6-game point streak, 9 points overall in that stretch. And then Hintz centering one of the top scoring lines all season long, and they're on a big-time heater right now. If you want to go to the other side, though, look at Vince Dunn on defense for the Seattle club. And up front, Jared McCann has already got the 30-goal mark in his back pocket. Again, 2 cheap values if you want to go to the other side of that contest.
All right, gentlemen, now we're going to go over to the DK Sportsbook for this 3-game slate. And I say best bet for Buffalo, Toronto. You say what, Paul?
Take the parlay. Toronto's going to win, and then keep the game total under 7 for the better payout than the standard game totals that you see in terms of the money line or a game total here in that one.
Jeff?
Mitch Marner, anytime goal, plus 155. Are these odds correct? I mean, again, we're playing the Sabres here. I mean, I love this one. And if you're going to make a same-game parlay tonight, I think this is actually a good spot to do it. You can take the Leafs, maybe to even cover 2.5 or 1.5 goals, pair it with a Marner goal, maybe take the over on the Toronto team total as well, like 3.5. You're going to get some pretty nice odds. But Mitch Marner, anytime goal, plus 155. I'm surprised he's over plus 150, to be honest.
Jeff, for Colorado, Montreal, what bet do you have an eye on right now?
I mean, I'm just going to go standard here. Just take the Colorado Avalanche on the puck line. I mean, they've been a little bit like up and down of late. They kind of struggled against the Coyotes, but I mean, the Canadians are just playing out the strain. The Canadians are not going to be able to get shots on net. I'd be surprised if the Canadians score more than 2 goals in this game. I also think looking at the Canadians like under 2.5 goals is also just a very good game prop for this. But I think that this is a spot where the Avalanche probably break out a little bit and they just cruise to some kind of 5-2 win. So give me the Avalanche minus 105 on the puck line. I think those odds should be even shorter, to be honest.
All right, Avs, pretty heavy road favorite here, Paul.
Yeah, and I see the same thing. I'm going for the parlay. Take Colorado to win, but I'm going to say under 6.5 total for the plus 155 payout. That's a healthier one than some of the traditional game lines that are on tap for this one. And I just believe, like Jeff said, Montreal's going to have a tough time scoring. Colorado's going to just do enough to stay under that total, and I'll collect, I'm pretty sure.
Paul, Kraken are the smallest dog here on the slate. What do you want to do in this game against the Stars?
This time I'm going to go to the puck line and take Dallas, counting on that offense to roll a big number over Seattle. It's the second straight meeting for these clubs, an unusual bit of scheduling that we've seen only a few times this season. They're coming off a 4-3 overtime Stars win, so you might take a look at the over in that one too. But I'm saying take Dallas on the puck line here for that nice, healthy payout.
Jeff Ulrich, what's the move?
Yeah, I would probably just roll with Dallas on the game line. I'm going to go to the player props, though. Rupa Hintz, I already mentioned him. You can get over 2.5 shots on goal at minus 105. Hintz has been shooting a lot more of late. I mean, like, he's playing a ton. Again, you're going up against the Kraken, who, I mean, defensively, 5-on-5, they still allow a lot of shots on goal. They don't have the greatest penalty kill. I think Hintz probably gets there again. I just like the odds. I mean, minus 105, we're not paying a ton of juice. You're almost at plus money. Give me Hintz to go over that 2.5 shots on goal mark.
Paul Bruno, your job here is done. Jeff Ulrich, stay right where you are because Scotty Scheffler continues to impose his will across the world of the PGA Tour. And in that final round at TPC Sawgrass, on his way to winning the PGA Tour's flagship event, 17 under par here, Jeff. And in doing so, #1 in the world. He won $4.5 million, becomes just the 3rd golfer ever to serve as the reigning champ of the Players and the Masters simultaneously, joining, I don't know, a couple dudes named Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus. So what's more impressive, Scotty's dominance here yesterday or his 88-year-old grandma walking all 72 holes with her walker to see Scotty win the Players?
It's definitely his grandma.
Yeah, right?
I hope I can walk that well and just have that kind of attention span when I'm that age. What an impressive move by his grandma.
Yep.
I mean, that is commitment. You love to see it. Absolutely. Shout out to Scotty Scheffler's grandma. But let's talk golf for a bit. Scotty Scheffler, 5 wins since February 2022 now. He's won TPC Scottsdale twice. He's won the API. He's won the Players, won the Masters, won a match play in there. He also gave away 2 wins in there. He gave away wins at the Colonial and Tour Championship. And I do mean give away. I mean, he wasn't just close. He should have won those events. Scotty Scheffler is, it's funny. He may be still one of the most underrated players in golf. Everyone talks about, who's the best player in the world? Oh, it's Jon Rahm. It's Rory McIlroy. When these guys are on the top of their game, they can't be beat. Scotty Scheffler is good at everything. There's no weakness in his game. Does he drive it quite as well as Rory? Probably not. He's better around the greens than Rory. He's more consistent putting. He spikes with the putter more consistently than Rory does. He's good with every iron pretty much throughout his bag. Scotty Scheffler is a guy who's just very confident in his ability. He is not scared of the big moments. He relishes them, and he doesn't seem to get inside his head as much as some of these other elite players do. He is a player who's going to be around for a while, and unless something switches here with a part of his game and it just starts to drift off, I mean, he is going to be a tough man to beat this year in the majors.
All right, well, he is not in the field at the Valspar as expected. Final leg of the Florida swing here, dude. But you know who is Sam Burns? Two-time reigning champion down there in Tampa. PGA Tour pin placement. That's what this segment's called. So tell me where he finishes. Does he make it 3 straight, dude? An attempt to create a piece of history.
The viceroy of the Valspar, Sam Burns.
Let's go.
Look, this guy loves this course. I mean, he absolutely dominates. The thing with Burns is he's gained like 5 strokes putting. He gained 9 strokes putting, I think, the first year he won here. So he is a little bit putter based. He's certainly striking the ball better last year when he came in here. Burns has looked out of sorts to start the year. He's starting to look a little bit better last week, but it's not enough for me to get on him here necessarily. You also have to think at some point he's going to come to this event and just not light it up on the greens. And with the way he's been striking the ball, very inconsistent. There's been some concerns about his setup as well. I'm going to peg Sam Burns for like a T16 this week. I mean, I certainly think he'll do okay. He'll probably still gain strokes putting. He's a great putter. I mean, I'm not trying to discount the fact that he's not good in that area of the game. He's one of the best putters on the PGA. But I just think with the rest of his game, where it's at and how tough this course is and how penalizing some of these holes can be, I think Burns is going to finish around, T25, T15. So I'll peg him for, what did I say, T16?
Yeah.
That's probably even a little high, but we'll go with that.
I mean, he's coming out of hibernation, too, on Bermuda, which in the past is where he has definitely shined the brightest. Tommy Fleetwood, fairway Jesus. Like, he was a huge fan. He's a fan favorite around TPC Sawgrass, dude. So his odds, outright odds, plus 2,500 on the DK Sportsbook. Where do you think he finishes? Did not have a great Sunday. He was plus 4 yesterday.
Now, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Fleetwood. Yes, Emerson. We're going, you know what? I mean, I don't do this very often, but Tommy Fleetwood's going to win this event.
No, really?
Look, dude, Tommy Fleetwood is like the most overdue of overdue players to win a PGA Tour event. 5 top 5 finishes in his career at major championships. He is playing well. He shot 4 over last week. I think he was a little bit in his own head. He was trying to go for the win. He was 5 back as Scheffler. He probably said, I got to go for this. It wasn't there early. So what? So he drifted off. Tommy Fleetwood gained 5 strokes on approach last week. He gained a bunch of strokes on approach at the API as well. The putter was a little bit better last week. This is a player who's improved his around the green and putting game as well. I think he can come in here, gain a bunch of strokes putting. He's pretty solid off the tee. This is not an elite field at all. We've got Justin Thomas, who's, again, another player who's looked a little bit out of sorts to start the year at the top. He's very vulnerable. Jordan Spieth is all over the place. Burns, I just mentioned. Tommy Fleetwood can win this event. He's my pick to win early on here, and I think he's going to do that. I think Tommy Fleetwood picks up his first win this week. He's done well in the state of Florida. He's got top 5s at Sawgrass and Honda. He's finished top 20 this event before. Tommy Fleetwood's going to win this week.
All right, you mentioned Jordan Spieth. He's all over the place. He's got the second best odds in this tournament, plus 1,200. He made the cut at Sawgrass thanks to like a miracle chip in, and also his drive, I believe, on 9, knocking off a fan's leg there, like back into play instead of landing in the water. Do you think he can play well here? Where does he finish?
I'm just going to assume Jordan Spieth is like unlucky with everything else in his life. Like he's got a bad mechanic. Like when he goes to the drive and they forget his order, because he is so lucky on the golf course that it's got to even out in other areas of his life. I think Spieth is actually playing okay. Like he's playing good golf. He seems to be warming up. His irons are there a lot of weeks. The around the green game isn't quite as consistent as it has been in the past. The putter certainly hasn't been lighting it up. I like him more than Thomas this week, even though the odds are similar, and they definitely say you should be backing Thomas over Spieth in this situation. But I don't mind him. I think that he's kind of gearing up for Augusta, and I think that's probably what's mainly on his mind this week. I'm going to peg him, like for Burns, another top 20. I'll say a little bit better than Burns. We'll say T9. I'm going to peg him for a top 10. He's wanted this course before, certainly likes playing here at the Valspar. And I think this is kind of the situation for Spieth where the Players is over. He's gotten in some good results. His focus is really just on sharpening that game for Augusta. So I think he's going to come and play this week. I don't mind him for DFS either. Talk about that later in the week, but I'm going to peg him for a top 10. Again, I don't have enough confidence in him right now necessarily to call for the win, but I think he'll certainly be there. T9 is where we'll go.
All right, where are you going to peg Justin Thomas, the favorite on the DraftKings Sportsbook, plus 1,100 here. 6th appearance at Valspar, has 4 top 18 finishes in 5 starts, dude, including T3 last year.
I mean, look, we're all kind of just waiting for that week for Justin Thomas just to turn it on. I mean, he definitely has the biggest range of outcomes, I think, compared to Spieth and Burns, because I think Justin Thomas, I don't necessarily love Spieth or Burns to win this week, but Justin Thomas is a player who's just so good and he just wins so consistently. Could he come here to this lesser event and just pick up a win? Yes, he could, but I don't know. I mean, he looks still looks lost on the greens. The around the green game is still good, but the irons aren't necessarily firing as they usually do. I think that's a concern when you're coming to a place like the Valspar where, if you're a little bit off, you're going to get penalized. So I'm going to peg him for just another kind of week where, maybe he just not everything clicks. It just doesn't seem to be clicking for Justin Thomas. So I'm going to peg him right with Burns. I'm going to peg him for a top 20. We'll say T16. He and Sam Burns still look like they're just figuring things out. I think you'll see Justin Thomas eventually figure it out later in the season. But for early in the year right now, I mean, I want players who have been consistently top 10ing, consistently getting themselves in the mix.
Okay.
To me, it's not necessarily Justin Thomas. So definitely don't want to pay up for the plus 1,100 on the sports book. And for our placing segment here, I'm just going to say he probably cruises to another top 20.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like doesn't sound like Matty Fitzpatrick would be a guy you're describing either, because even plus $1,600, fourth best leg on the board, hasn't been playing great golf this year, Jeff. He just hasn't. The reigning U.S. Open champion. He finished T5 here last year, yeah, but coming off a miscut at TPC Sawgrass, I feel like it's been a disappointing season for him.
It's definitely been a disappointing start. He dealt with some injury issues at the start. I do think you're going to see Fitzpatrick turn things around soon. I actually kind of like him as a sneaky play. I don't like him enough to bet him at plus 1,600, but don't forget about Fitzpatrick, the fact that he has something that even Thomas can say, like he just doesn't have, and that's a putter that can go absolutely nuclear on these Bermuda greens. Like, I actually kind of rate his game a little bit similar to Sam Burns. He's actually a better off the tee player. Similar off the tee player to Sam Burns. He can get it out there now. He's certainly improved that aspect of his game. He did strike it well at the API. I'm not so concerned with players who didn't play well last week at Sawgrass. Fitzpatrick showed some form at API. I will not be shocked if he gets in the mixer. I think Fitzpatrick is going to be a sneaky play, especially for DFS. I'm going to peg him for a top 5. I'm not going to say he wins. I don't think he's quite there. Again, my pick is already Fleetwood as well, but I think Fitzpatrick's going to get in the mix this week because, again, that putter can be a huge difference maker. The confidence is starting to come around a little bit. We saw it at the API, and I think that flashes back this week. So give me Matthew Fitzpatrick for like a top 10 finish here.
All right, so Keegan Bradley, we'll wrap up the segment with this dude. He struck it well at API as well. It's so weird when I look at his numbers, Jeff. It's just been feast or famine with the 36-year-old all season. So he's missed 3 cuts over the last 6 competitions, but in the middle of that, he's sprinkled in a second place at the Farmers, T10 at the API, and T20 in Phoenix.
Yeah, Bradley is interesting. I don't have as much confidence in Bradley bouncing back as I do Fitzpatrick. Not that Keegan has played poorly, but outside of that API that API finish, I mean, it's been a bit of a struggle, and he's not. His putter has improved, but he's not as good a putter as Fitzpatrick. He did finish runner-up at this event to Sam Burns back in 2021. So, Bradley is certainly a player who I think sets up well. He's going to find a lot of fairways off the tee. He's not going to get you in trouble, but I do just wonder if, we're just seeing a little bit of regression from Keegan. He had a really good 2022. He hasn't really found it yet this season. I'm certainly not diving in at plus 2,500. I would rather get on Fleetwood there. I think his odds are just too short in this event. So we'll see where his price comes out for DFS. I'm just going to peg Keegan for he's probably going to make the cut because he's very consistent. But I mean, the state of his game, I don't think is quite where it was like in the fall of 2022. So I'm going to peg him for like a T25, T30. He probably makes the cut. He does here a lot. Yep. He's consistent off the tee. And I'm not going to discount him too much for what he did last week, but not again a player I want to get in on at that price.
I mean, feast or famine this season for him, but also feast or famine just at this resort alone. He has missed the cut in 3 of his last 5 events here.
This is one of the events where he went first round leader to miss the cut. He pulled the full Keegan.
Yeah, he did climb all the way up in second place in 2021, but losing to your bestie, Sam Burns. Yes. Jeff, good seeing you, dude. Thanks, man. We'll catch up with you tomorrow here on the show. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We love you, mean it. Hopefully, Jesse's back tomorrow. Slate tonight, 5 o'clock. Our show back 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning. Peace out.